All right, I'm joined by Oakland City Councilmember Sheng Thao. You are running for mayor, which has to be so much work on top of what you're already doing with the Oakland City Council. Fortunately, you're in recess right now. You're even on TikTok. So how has this whole experience been for you?
No, it's been amazing. I always say that this is the love work. You must have a passion for community. You must have a passion for trying to make government work for its people. And so it's for me, it's fun. I love meeting with community, and not just that, but getting those nice tangible things like you saw on my TikTok. Making sure that we're investing in our parks and making sure that people can get to and from school safely.
Yeah, I have two little kids and we spend a lot of time at public parks. So I know how important it is to have a good playground to play at. So that was really cool. I really actually enjoyed that video you posted. It was fun seeing you play around at the park. And this is really, to me, as a sports guy, an important time for Oakland because you have the potential of Howard Terminal, the development, the parks, the residential, everything that would come with that, plus the Coliseum site that could come after. So you could, in a sense, if you become the next mayor, be in charge of massive change and development for the city.
Absolutely. I think that it's about centering Oakland and Oakland residents, right? And what that encompass is, yes, all of these things. We always talk about like the vision of what Oakland can be. And you just hit the nail on its head, Casey. I mean, this is a pivotal point in the city of Oakland, a pivotal point. And the next mayor, it's going to really be able to shift Oakland or make Oakland for, depending on who's living in Oakland. And so that's why I'm really big on deeply affordable housing and moderate rate housing and what have you. So we can build an Oakland for everyone.
Yeah, and we'll get to the affordable housing things because I have a question for you about that. But I mean, when we look at the Howard Terminal project, it's intensely confusing for me. I'm sure it's very hard for you. Hopefully you have people that can help you with that. Hopefully there's briefings, but there's a lot going on. And when you see the value of keeping the team here, is there a kind of number that you can't really quantify, an importance that you can't really quantify, a generational value of keeping the A's here?
1,000%. Yes, absolutely. I always talk about like, yes, there is this gravitas of having a professional sports team in the city of Oakland. I mean, we have the Oakland roots and the Oakland soul. I want to be very clear about that. But when we talk about the Oakland A's, I mean, that's like intergenerational, right? People have sweet memories of going with their families to the Oakland A's games, even sitting in the nosebleeds or tailgating. And so there is this gravitas to not only having a pro sports team in the city of Oakland, but also the intergenerational experience as well that you can't actually quantify.
Now that's where it gets hard, right? Because you can't let the city get fleeced by a sports team. It's happened before. I think this deal looks a bit different, but I mean, you guys, in a sense, are the gatekeepers in the city council to make sure that this city does not get taken advantage of by a sports team. So how do you weigh the actual dollar figures with those kind of unquantifiable values that we were just talking about?
In the contract and in the proposal and in the words, because you're absolutely right. I mean, my big thing is, look, I want to do whatever it is that I can do to ensure that we keep the Oakland A's rooted here in the city of Oakland. That's really important. However, there is a minimal threshold for me. I will not be able to sign off on anything in good conscience as a representative of the constituents in the city of Oakland and the taxpayers and the voters, if that means that at the end of the day, we, the city and the residents, are held to actually hold that big obligation of paying back infrastructure funds, right? If the A's won't step up to it. So for me, it's reading the fine lines and ensuring that the proposal have hard backstops so that we, the city of Oakland and the residents of Oakland, are not having to pay back, what we see essentially with the Oakland Raiders when they left, right? And so we have to be very responsible. And not just that, but it's about, the community benefits. There's so many nuances here. You know that, Casey. I mean, we're talking about possible vendors, employment, who gets the job, who gets to be vendors at the stadium. There's not just that, but traffic mitigation. Who pays for that on game day? And so I just want to make sure that we have a fair contract or a fair proposal with the Oakland A's.
Now, what I hear is the team, the city, going back and forth, figuring all that out. They're going to have to get it to you guys soon. We know that, and we'll get to that in a second. But what's the last time you really kind of briefed on the negotiations, and are you seeing things that you like/dislike?
Yeah, so I get monthly briefings from city staff. I know that there are multiple other meetings that are happening. I'm not one of the council members that are sitting in those meetings, but I do get the consistent briefings. I think that we are moving towards a possible proposal, but as you stated, I have not seen one proposal from the Oakland A's quite yet, and so everything that what folks are hearing in the media or what have you is just the Oakland A's trying to negotiate in the media.
Yeah, and to be fair to them, I know it's hard when you're in midst of negotiations, and I know you're not like directly in that room, but they haven't really been leaking a lot, like to me that I know of. And the city's been very tight-lipped too. So the stuff that's getting out, it doesn't feel like people on either side feel like they're terribly wronged at the moment, which is good. But I think like what happened on July 20th, remember that meeting last year where it was really, the tone was tough. I mean, it was kind of a big battle in a sense in the city council with the team. And I feel like the temperature has been turned down a bit since then, right?
Yeah, I agree with you on that the temperature has been turned down a bit. I mean, again, we're not seeing the Oakland A's in the media saying like, your council members are going to drive us away. Like they're not doing that anymore, right? We know that wasn't true to begin with. And so I think that we're at a respectable playing field now, as maybe that's the correct word, but we are still in negotiations with the Oakland A's. Like I said earlier, is that it's not about being a huge cheerleader about like we must keep the Oakland A's here at all costs. No, it's not about that. We are in negotiations right now, right?
Yes.
This is a business deal. And so you'll not hear me be like the strongest cheerleader for it because I think that's inappropriate. The best interest of the constituents and residents of and taxpayers of Oakland, I'm the steward of their funds and their dollars. And so I'm going to go to negotiations. I'm not going to play these games out in media. But yes, with the North Star that maybe we can work something out because we want them to be rooted here.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone wants them to stay. I think that's a pretty obvious conclusion. But what you just said, to peel back the layers a bit for people that don't really understand what's going on, like you can't be out there going like, I'm voting yes, no matter what, because that only damages your position, right?
Yes.
Like that doesn't help you.
Yes, no, it doesn't. It's like, I'm voting yes because I'm going to keep the Oakland A's here no matter what. I mean, literally, then the Oakland A's will just be like, great, well, this is our proposal and we're going to walk away if you don't sign off on it, And so, there's many more conversations to be had. It's really all nuanced. We have community benefits that we need to look at. I think we're going to talk about affordable housing and that number and what that should look like. Again, just so much that needs to go into this proposal, but really, truly, I need to see those hard backstops. Like we cannot be held with the responsibility of paying back billions of dollars or millions of dollars at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I actually have all that on my list. I'm jumping around my planned questions because I'm just having fun talking to you. But we'll get to the affordable housing, we'll get to the community benefits because that stuff is critically important. But I want to kind of pick up on the backstops thing you just said, because I heard that a lot at the city council meetings. I think Dan Call brought it up and then it was echoed a lot as well. I think what you're trying to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is it would be better if the A's were putting up the money and then, the offsite infrastructure and all the other grants and everything would be reimbursing the A's, not the city putting up the money and then being on the hook, right?
That's exactly right. The city, we do not want to be put on the hook for any of the financial funds. We have a lot of grants that are coming in, and yes, and I want to be very clear. The grants are coming in specifically for this project. So if it weren't for this project, we wouldn't actually have the grant funds.
Yeah, so that's not money, and this gets thrown around a lot, but that's not money that can be used for other things. It's like the project is the magnet. The magnet brings in the grant money. The grant money can be used to fix the offsite infrastructure. And that's all great. That is a community benefit, so to speak. But it's not like, why are they doing this when they could be fixing that? That's not what's happening here, right?
You're absolutely right. And I think that gets conflated and confused a lot. And so, yes, it's targeted for just this project. If we don't have a project, we will not get the grant funds to do something else with it.
And the grant funds then go to another city, which is not good for anybody here.
Right.
So I have a date circled on my calendar. Maybe it's circled on yours. September 20th. I think that if the A's and the city don't have a really clear idea of the proposal by that day, then I don't know that you guys can vote before the end of the year. And if you don't vote by the end of the year, I don't really feel good about this thing happening. So is there anything that could make me feel better about that?
Yeah, so let's go to the reason why you circled September 20th, right? I mean, the reason why you circled that is because at the Rules Committee, I, as the chair of it, scheduled Councilmember Noel Gallo's, proposal to actually have a cost benefit analysis, and it's a independent third party cost benefit analysis. So actually, we need to see a proposal before that. I don't know if you recall, but both myself and Councilmember Kolb has stated on the dais when we scheduled it, we do not want to see a proposal on the same day that we're having this cost benefit analysis. We must be given the proposal ahead of time prior to that meeting so that, of course, we can go through it and then have the cost benefit analysis. And so that's the timeline that we're working in. I mean, obviously, we can come back, and if city staff say, hey, we're not going to be ready with the cost benefit proposal until like October, then we will move that item to October. That has not happened yet. And so there's a lot of different things that are just kind of hanging in flux. If we don't see a cost benefit analysis sometime soon, by October or what have you, I mean, it doesn't mean that we on the council wouldn't be able to vote for it. We could still vote for it in December, right? We will have a new administration come January, new council members, at least 2, I believe. And so, how things move from there, that is what's in flux right now, right?
Yeah.
Depending on leadership.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that you pointed out that if it's like, hey, we're close, we're not there, you could move it back a little bit, but you're saying past October, it would be very, very hard to vote, like on an actual binding vote on a development agreement, community benefits agreement by the end of the year, right?
Yeah, because you're going to see the cost benefit analysis. I mean, nothing is just straightforward, right, Casey? So we're going to see the cost benefit analysis, and there's going to be some tweaks that we want to do. We're going to talk to community. We're going to go, I know the council members will go out and have town halls to say, what do you think about these cost benefit analysis? So it's time because I know a lot of us, including myself, we want to go to community and ask our constituents, how do you feel about this? And so it's those town halls and then finessing it to, I'm not saying that it's not doable. I'm just saying like it is cutting it really close. And so October, November, I don't know about November, but yes, by the end of October would be actually, if we do push it off, the cost benefit analysis should be reviewed in October so we can do the community engagement.
Yeah, and that's critically important. I think people see this and it's like, just get it done. It's like, you need the numbers. Mm-hmm. You need time to look over the numbers. You need time to schedule things. And then you have to be able to talk to your constituents in the community. And that stuff takes time. Obviously, there's kind of a deadline here, but that is critically important in this process. So I know people watching this, I'd like them to understand it. It's not like you're going to snap your fingers and here's the numbers. Vote. That's not how this works.
Yeah, no, that's not how it works. Again, it's negotiations, right? In any kind of negotiation, the papers are passed back and forth multiple times.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's all in the details. We want to make sure that we get this right. And as policy, as legislators, we want to read through every single word because we don't want to get stuck with a bad proposal, a bad contract, or what have you. And so you have to do your due diligence, and sometimes that takes time, and it's worth it.
Just drafting the documents, the lawyers. Like everything's got to happen. So it's time. Time, unfortunately, isn't on anyone's side at this point. But let's go to the community benefits angle, because I really want to talk about affordable housing. I really want to talk about the community benefits agreement. Right now, I find the community benefits agreement situation very confusing because, you hear from different parties that are at the table, steering committee, et cetera. Then you're hearing that people walk away and come back and the A's are funding a group and then they're not. It's just so much. So how are you dealing with that? Are you able to really, I know you don't want to step on Carol Fife's toes, for example, in West Oakland, but are you talking to the people in West Oakland yourself? What are you hearing?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I talk to any group that wants to speak with me. And so, I've talked to folks, organizations in West Oakland, in Chinatown. I mean, I want to be very clear that it is Chinatown and West Oakland residents who are going to be extremely impacted by Howard Terminal. And we're talking about these are 2 areas that are the highest polluted areas already in the city of Oakland. And so for me, I want to put their voices and their lived life experience at the forefront of this community benefits conversation, right? And we got to think through around, all the different details, right? Traffic mitigation, how do we, get people who are going to Howard Terminal, how we get them to stop in Chinatown to actually spend their money there. All of this comes into play. And so, yeah, absolutely. I am having multiple conversations with all stakeholders. And going back to the community benefits and the groups that were put together, I mean, these are just like a small group of stakeholders, right? You have groups of people who have reached out to me who have said, like, it's not fair. Our voice isn't at the table, right? And so, so there's a lot of nuances, and this is why it's so key that we get a proposal in front of us so that we can go out to get community buy-in or to make the fix that we need to make so that we can continue to negotiate and then actually vote on something, right? And so, it goes back to like, time is of the essence, but at the same time, we don't want to rush the process.
Yeah, and how do you juggle, for example, Chinatown? I've walked through there. The parking, the traffic mitigation is a problem, but then also the people walking through there will be spending money, so that's a good thing. So how do you balance that issue? Because to me, the increased foot traffic should really help Chinatown, but if people are leaving their cars there all night, it's going to hinder it, right?
Yeah, it's actually, I think we have to be very intentional. You would assume that, yes, because people are walking through Chinatown that, maybe after the game, they'll stop by for dinner, but we have to be intentional about how they do stop for dinner or that they do pre-game in Oakland, right? In Oakland in general. And so I think that's part of the community benefits. It's like, what are some of the things that that Howard Terminal, the Oakland A's can incentivize people who are attending the games? Is it a coupon, $5 off if you go to a certain restaurant in Chinatown? Is it, validation of your parking by a certain percentage if you shop in Chinatown? And so we have to be very intentional. It's not good enough to just assume that people would actually stop and eat and drink in our city, right? Because and so like, what kind of incentives are we doing in partnership with the Oakland A's in order to be intentional about that?
Yeah, those are brilliant ideas. I actually hadn't even heard any of those. I think that's a really smart plan. Because frankly, if you're getting off at the Lake Merritt station, you're going to walk through there. And if you're getting off, and walking down Broadway towards Jack London Square, that's going to spill right through a whole bunch of businesses all the way to Jack London Square. And I look at the Oakland Coliseum and I hate it because you go, you park, you watch the game, you leave. Like, Oakland stands to benefit nil on that scenario. So I think that if you have hordes of people coming through, getting off these BART lines, you can only stand to benefit if you can, I guess, harness that money like you were just saying.
No, and that's exactly right. And I think that not only the businesses get to win in that scenario, but also obviously the city, right? We will collect those tax dollars. And it's always about how do we actually expand our tax pie without taxing the same people over and over, which is our own businesses, our own residents and property owners, right? And so I think that there is a case to be made that this can expand our tax base, right? So long as it's done in a fair way. Again, I'm going to say this with hard stops so that we are not left with holding the bill at the end of the day.
Yeah, like I talked to one of the people from Everett and Jones Barbecue the other day. We had him on as an interview, and I asked, would you like to have the A's there? He's like, oh yeah, because I mean, the business, they would really boom there. I think if you already had a spot there and the increased traffic could only help. So let's get to affordable housing.
Okay.
So the reason I reached out in the first place, one of the questions that came up was I heard recently that you were saying, I believe it was 15% on-site, 25% off-site. And that was, to me, slightly confusing because wasn't the city council term sheet 35? So
Yes.
Where's the number there?
Yeah, no, I mean, the 25 offsite for me is aspirational. Remember, we're in negotiations. So now I'm getting, I'm spilling it out though, but you're absolutely right. The resolution, it does say 35% total, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's aspiration. I mean, you see the unhoused on our streets, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that we need to do way more in regards to our affordable and deeply affordable housing stock. And so, that's aspirational. I mean, that's like, I see all of our roles in the city of Oakland. There's a social fabric, a social responsibility. And so that's where, where my thought process is at. It's like, look, 40% in total, 15% on site. And the 15% on site, that's firm for me. I want to be very clear. I joke around, but I'm not joking. When I always tell people like, look, the aides have stopped like lobbying me for anything lower, because like I'm very straightforward. Like this is what I need, and then you can get a yes, right? I mean, I'm very pragmatic, Casey, in that regard. It's like there are thresholds, and what's fair is fair and what's not is not. And so I believe that having 15% as a minimum on site is more fair than anything. And I believe that they can do 25% off site. And that is aspirational. However, yes, you're correct. The resolution on the books is that we have 20% off site as a minimal, along with community benefits and what have you. I also want to see that there is some assurances that the Oakland A's are going to stay here for not just 5 years, but longer than that, right? And so what it worked out, and that's a key too. And I'm not going to say like what number I'm thinking as we're negotiating, but like we have to have some security in regards to like, look, Oakland A's, if we give you this real estate deal, right, is what it is. How long are you committed to being rooted in Oakland? Right. And so that's also a conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah, I think that would be an easy one, frankly, because it's going to take them 20 plus years just to fully build out the thing anyway. So I can't imagine they would leave in the middle of building it. So I would hope that's a quick conversation and not,
I hope so too.
not a tough one.
No, you're absolutely right. And I hope so. I hope so too. And that's a part of it too. It's like, you can't, I mean, obviously part of the proposal should say, we will not leave during the supposed build out, right? We won't just like all of a sudden say, actually, we're not doing the stadium, but we're going to do the condos. And so all of that's going to be a part of our conversation. And, I'm optimistic that would be relatively quickly a quick conversation in regards to the answer to that question.
Okay. So I thought of something when you were talking a moment ago, going back to Carol Fife. She said that she doesn't feel like she's being included in the process from the A's. You had this quote. I was actually going to ask you about the very specific quote because I thought it was great. It was probably in the Oakland side chat you did, but you said the A's have stopped lobbying you because you've made it so clear about what you need to get to yes. So how do you feel the communication has been between yourself and the team?
I think that they reached out to me multiple times. City staff, again, I'm not in those city staff conversations. So city staff also briefs me all the time as well too. I felt like, yeah, they have reached out to me, but at this point, I'm steady in regards to like my minimals. And so again, I don't think that they see a point in trying to lobby me to change my mind, because I've been very open about it and I'm still at where I'm at today. And that's also the case for city staff too. They're like, hey, we know where Sheng's at with that, right? And so I think that that's just kind of me being who I am, right? Very direct and transparent. Like, these are the minimals, and this is how you get me to yes. And like, it's either we play ball or we don't, because I think that what the threshold that I've put out is really fair.
Yeah, and I'd say that when you're looking at a process as difficult as this one, as confusing as this one, a bit of clarity is actually pretty nice. So it's good that you've made it that clear and that apparent, and that they have stopped even needing to lobby you because you've said, this is what I want, and that will get me to yes. I think that is very helpful when you're looking at this whole confusing process.
And it saves a lot of people time as well too, because there's like so many stakeholders. Like, we should actually be spending the bulk of our time talking to community. That's the key point here, right? It's like, where I'm at. I mean, the council, we put ourselves on the record through a resolution. I don't know how true that is for other council members, but that rang really true to me. And that's what I have been saying out loud. And so now we should invest time into like listening to community and seeing how to, I hear a lot of people are like, no, this is not a good deal. So how do we get them to yes? So that should be what the focus is on, is like, how do you get community buy-in, or like, what is it that's missing that community needs to see, right? And so that's where I feel like folks should be really spending their time, and that is working with the council members in the districts. Councilmember Fife has said multiple times that the A's have not yet reached out to her, and so that's very disheartening to hear, because it is her district. You can't, we all count votes on the city council, right? You need 5 votes in order to get anything passed. She is the council member of the district. It doesn't matter if you think that you have 5 votes. You owe, out of respect, out of professionalism, that conversation, and to have, not just to have the conversation, to have a conversation, but to really take that conversation into heart and like try to make it work, because that's how we move Oakland forward. Like, you can't do it in silos, just well, I have 5 votes and the mayor supports, so then I don't need to talk to this person. Like you can't do work that way. Out of
Yeah,
respect and
yeah.
being professional, you must have those real serious conversations.
Yeah, I didn't mean to jump in on you. I mean, if I was doing this deal and Carol Fife told me this is a no, period, no matter what, I'd probably spend even more time talking to her, to be honest. But what do I know? I don't know anything about stuff like that. So question for you here. How do you think the mayor's done on this? She's worked really hard and she's had to deal with a lot of back and forth on this issue. So how do you think she's handled this whole process?
Like I said, I'm not involved in the smaller negotiating meetings. And so all I know is that, the money, the grant funds are coming from the state, the grant funds are coming from outside sources. And I think that in order for this project to work, we needed those grants. And I know that she has been the champion behind getting those grants secured and those relationships with, whether it's like senators or assembly members or whatever have you. And so I think in that regard, the process has been done really well. Again, I think that we could have done more in regards to not just running a process for the sake of process itself, but then the community conversation. I feel like a lot of people are telling me that this process happened, but then like they're not seeing any of the fruit of their labor be put into any possible proposal. And so I think that that's the weakness of how we've been negotiating.
Yeah, I mean, can you look at that stuff and almost picture what it would be like to have to be in that spot? Because that's what you're running for next, right?
No, you're absolutely right. And this is what I would be focused on, right? It's like, again, you like exactly what you said, Casey. If you knew that Councilmember Fife, the representative of the district, was a no, like I would be spending a lot of time and trying to figure out how to get this council member to a yes. And the same thing with community members. You're not going to get a yes from every single community group, right? Some people are just totally against it, but that doesn't mean to say that you can't get good, strong ideas with you're putting Oakland at the forefront and as your North Star. Right. And I've done a lot of this work with competing sides, like for instance, the progressive business tax, where nobody thought that big business, small business and labor unions could come together and ever work together. And it's like, we did work together and we had one ballot measure on that item. And so it's not about making everybody say yes, but it is about hearing people out and taking some of those ideas that are great ideas and incorporating them so that we can get buy-in, right? And then not just that, but doing a better job at educating the rest of the city. I think that a lot of people already believe that we have seen a proposal and that we voted it down or voted it up, and depending on who you're talking to, they'll say, you voted down this proposal. And then you could turn to the next person. They're like, no, you voted up the proposal. It's like, actually, there's been no proposal. So it's the education piece. It's what's needed, and coming out to the community, because I think a lot of people have different versions of what's happening.
I could talk to you for a really, really long time about this. I'm having a lot of fun. But I'll try to go 2 more. I'll try to keep it to 2 more. I know you're busy. How do you handle the misinformation then? Because I see like an avalanche of misinformation all the time. And how do people kind of sort through what's real and isn't real in this proposal when there are no numbers?
Yeah, and like the misinformation, it's frustrating. But at the end of the day, I think that we as leaders and even in media as well too, we all have a responsibility to ensure that the facts are out there. And so what I always encourage for city staff to do once I got on the city council in 2019 is that we need to create fact sheets, right? And simple, like 1-pager fact sheets of like items that are contentious, like this is actually what happened, it's just maybe a timeline or what have you, because we have to acknowledge that the majority of people, they're, working and have lives that they're not hyper focused on what's happening locally in the government, but they do hear bits and pieces. And so it is our job to educate and to update. And so, part of what the city can and should be doing is, a timeline and any updates, so that if people want to know what's happening and what has happened, they can just click on something and everybody knows that these are the facts, right? That it's not someone's opinion or there's no bias in it, but this is what the council has reviewed, with the link of whatever we reviewed, and this is what they voted for, so just to be more clear, and then have council members share that with their constituencies. That's incredibly important as well. We have neighborhood councils I go to, my office is always present at every single neighborhood council in my district right now. And so we give the feedback out. I mean, obviously these are just family members, families that are hyper activated, but we're hopeful that we always tell them too, that you need to spread the facts out and let people know where the links are, right? So that they can read it for themselves too.
Yeah. All right. Last one for you. Do you think the Las Vegas threat is real? How real do you think it is?
I think that it's real in the sense that if we, if this doesn't happen, like I do believe that they will leave. If you asked if I can switch that question a little bit around, do I believe that the Oakland A's really want to stay here in the city of Oakland? That's where I'm kind of like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. I think they do, because I don't think they would go through all this if they really just wanted to leave. But who knows? They've invested lots and lots of money trying to get this thing to work. So I do think as a backup plan, it works because it's fast and easy. But I think that they're all, I don't want to say rooted in Oakland, but if you look at where most of the people are from, they're from the Bay Area. I don't see them wanting to leave for Vegas unless they have to.
Well, I really hope that they do really want to stay here in Oakland, because, a lot of us, we want them to stay too, so I think that so long as we keep that as our North Star, like all of us, right, in negotiations, that we can get to a yes. Like we're reasonable people, and we're all adults. And so if we come to the room to have that attitude of this is our North Star, is how do we stay here in Oakland, then we can all get to a yes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. People that are freaking out about this, they reach out to me all the time, and I tell them, if the deal's fair, they're going to vote yes. Like, why wouldn't they?
You're absolutely
if it's not fair,
I mean, there's, and I want to bring this up because this is something you haven't asked me, is around, I know that a lot of my constituents ask me, well, they should just go back to the Coliseum, right? Yeah. And so, what I always tell my constituents is that they've made it very clear, the Oakland A's have made it very clear that that they will not go to the Coliseum. Like the Coliseum is just not even a plan B anymore. And so, like decisions like that from any stakeholders, whether, you're the Oakland A's or City Hall or whatever have you, or government, that you can say, okay, if that is their choice and they're not trying to do that, then that could be real, right? Whereas right here about the question around whether the Oakland A's can, if there can be a deal where we can build a stadium for them and then they stay, if the North Star is that they want to stay in Oakland, then it'll work. It'll happen.
Yeah,
so long as it's fair.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know when's the last time you've been to the Coliseum for a game? And I'll make a point after that.
That was before COVID.
Yeah.
That was before COVID, and I took my son to a game. Mm-hmm.
So to me, like, I grew up there. I've been going there since I was 1 year old, and I just would not build at that site. I think that's a phenomenal site for what the African American Sports Entertainment Group is trying to do. I think it's a great site for that. I don't think it's a great site for baseball. I think being close to downtown on the waterfront is better. And I think that having people come in and just leave without spending any money in the city is bad. To me, if that site was so good, I think a lot more would have been built around there and a lot more would have happened when there was 3 sports teams there, not just 1. So I don't know. To me, I could see why they wouldn't want to be at the Coliseum, but I think it would be nice if that was the backup plan.
Yeah. And I think it goes back, Casey, to the being intentional, maybe it's just the immigrant blood in me, but it's all about intentionality and like rolling up your sleeves and really putting in the hard work, because I do believe that the Coliseum itself, I mean, if the A's were still there and we were wanting to renovate, that we can build it up and have the businesses there. If that was part of the conversation, it's clearly not, and that's why, it's clearly not the conversation, but it's unfortunate that it wasn't the intentionality wasn't put into that when they were there and when the Warriors were here and Raiders and what have you. And so it's unfortunate, but we are moving forward.
Yeah. And a lot of that wasn't really up to them either. I mean, there's the JPA, there's a whole lot of moving parts there. So we can talk about that for another hour.
So I'll leave you alone owners on all of that. And so it's like so much, it's a lot of nuance. And so, lots of history. Hopefully all positive history for you.
for the A's. Hopefully everything works out. Really great conversation. We'll have to do this again.
No, absolutely. Anytime. You just call me and then we'll make it happen.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Casey. I'll see you soon.